And it's difficult sometimes to explain to people that it's not the court's involvement initially with the driver's license. That they're in trouble with two different aspects in the DUI. First is with the court, because they've been charged with the DUI.
Sure.
They're also in trouble with the administrative branch, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles.
I see.
And because that's who initially suspends their license and takes it away, as typically they've either refused to take some sort of chemical test, or they've taken a test and they've tested over the legal limit.
That's
in Ohio.
interesting. And that's where we get the name administrative license suspension?
Correct, and that's what they
from the Bureau.
From the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. It's administratively. The license is suspended administratively initially.
I see.
Typically while the case is pending.
Sure.
So now sometimes you're fighting on two different fronts.
Yeah.
And you have to actually file civil action in the municipal court in terms of trying to get driving privileges
back.
Get your driving privileges back. So there's the license that you're dealing with. Sometimes a car has been seized, whether it's been seized improperly or it's been seized properly, and how long before I get my car back? Am I ever going to be able to get my car back? And then there's just the whole question of what's going to happen at the end of the day. Driving under the influence is a misdemeanor of the first degree. It carries up to 6 months in jail. So most people have never been in trouble in the law before, and they hear, wow, I actually face 6 months in jail.
For somebody who's never ever fathomed they'd ever be in jail.
Absolutely, and it's very disconcerting. And what do I have to do now? And what's going to happen? What's the process? Where are we going to go in terms of the case? So it's very complex in terms of trying to find out exactly what's happened in their particular case. At the same time, trying to find out whether there's a way that they actually can fight whether they should have been charged with a DUI in the first place.
Yeah, we should talk about that a little bit. Well, I guess before we leave complexities, on top of everything you said, and lawyers have to be good listeners, and when your client comes in, first of all, he or she is probably not somebody that visits lawyers very often. I mean, this is the problem we find with foreclosure cases. People, it's never happened to them before, and they don't know what to do. So you're collecting every fact that you could probably mark down on your yellow pad while you're talking to them, leaving alone the fact that your client is pretty well keyed up emotionally. He or she can't get to work, and it maybe all started out in a very innocent St. Patrick's Day celebration like we had a couple days ago, and somebody drank a little too much green beer.
Sure.
But it's a serious matter. When you're defending a client, Kris, in a DUI, how do you go about evaluating their case, and what do you look for? This is basically what we just touched upon, in hopes that you can find something to. You're looking for a defense. You're looking for something that you can put before the court.
Absolutely.
What are you looking for?
Well, when we first meet with the client, we try to get some information on what has happened in terms of what happened the night that they were stopped by an officer, and you kind of try to find out what was the reason that they were stopped. Was there a particular reason that the officer stopped them? And then we look to see what type of evidence, what they can remember from the stop, that gave enough evidence to the officer that would allow the officer to arrest them for driving under the influence charge. And then to find out whether there's some sort of chemical test, whether it's a breathalyzer test, a blood test, or any other type of chemical test that they may take, and find out if what their thoughts on that. Now we can get some of the information by use of discovery, which is a lawyer's fancy way of saying information that we ask
the
for.
prosecutor will give it to you.
Yeah, prosecutor gives us the information, and it's usually a police report. So now we have the police report. Most of the time now, there's a video of the stop, and then we would go out and look at the video and take a look and see how if we could tell how the person was driving, if the video started at that point. We take a look and see how a person has pulled over when they're being pulled over.
Sure.
When they get out of the car, how they look when they do certain standard field sobriety tests. We would request from the prosecutor to be able to go out to the local police station and inspect the records and make sure that the officers have done the breath test in a breathalyzer test in an appropriate manner, and that they're keeping records according to the Ohio Administrative Code.
I gotcha.
If there's been a blood test taken, whether they've followed all the procedures in place for the blood to be drawn. So there's really a lot to kind of take a look at. And sometimes
it really is a very, very complex area.
It is, and sometimes you even go out to the stop itself and take a look, or where the stop occurred, and take a look at because you can't catch everything on a video, or sometimes you need to see what the condition of the road is. Where were they required to take the tests? Did they take a test in a place where there's absolutely no light at night? If there's no line, if the road's damaged. So there's a lot that you can take a look into.
But the stop, Kris, I mean, in every DUI case that I think has ever been discussed, somebody brings up the term the stop. And for the benefit of our viewers, that's the authority that the law enforcement officer is using to pull the driver over.
Absolutely,
correct?
yes, correct.
Okay, and he can't just do that willy-nilly, right? He has to have what's called reasonable suspicion to do that?
Correct. There has to be some reason for an officer to pull someone over. That a reasonable suspicion that someone has committed a traffic violation, or that they're committing some sort of crime. There's other reasons for an officer maybe to pull someone over. Sometimes officers are performing caretaking functions, and if they think that there's something wrong with a light, or someone's
license plate light,
or the license plate's not there,
they can pull you for that.
They certainly can. So there's a number of reasons why someone is pulled over. The majority of the time, the officer has typically seen something that some sort of indication that whether they drive over one of the center line, or an edge
weave
line,
or something of that nature,
or they're weaving, or they don't make a complete stop, or those are typical reasons. But they need to have a reason to pull someone over. They can't just say, well, it's 11 o'clock at night, this is the only person on the road, I'm going to pull someone over, and just.
So the stop's critical. I mean, from a defense point of view, from an attorney who, the law has people on both sides here. Your counterpart is the prosecutor.
Absolutely.
Okay, from the defense attorney's point of view, the stop is critical.
Clearly, that's where the case begins.
Sure.
When the officer pulls over someone.
Yeah. Why did you do it?
Why did you do it? And if there was no reason to pull someone over, then certainly it was an improper stop.
Sure.
And a judge at that point, if the judge says yes, it's not an improper stop, then the entire any evidence that flows from that stop would be suppressed.
Sure, sure.
So the stop is the first thing we look at and see what the reason is.
Well, this is good stuff for our viewers to see it from that other angle. I mean, we hope it doesn't happen to anybody, and I'm sure you do too. And there's reasons why we have DUI laws, but albeit you can look at that discovery, and I do it too, and we get, I'm sure you get the same thing I get. You get a disc to look at, and it's technology is making it better all the time.
Absolutely.
Okay, but nonetheless, I think the message maybe for our viewers on this, if you're unfortunate enough to find yourself in this position, think very hard about every aspect of that stop and tell your attorney about it. I mean, even if it may seem very insignificant to the teller, the client, a good attorney was very interested to know that. And that's a real good point here.